There are a lot of common understandings that are passed on through the years from generation to generation, but what if I told you that some of the most believed and understood facts are actually false? Well, here are 10 completely false facts that everyone still believes in. The Great Wall and space. You've probably heard the claim that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object that can be seen from space, but it's not true. In fact, it's often almost impossible to see the Great Wall from space with the naked eye. It's only visible in perfect viewing conditions from a really low orbit of about 100 kilometers above sea level. Most astronauts spend their time at a much higher orbit at the International Space Station, between 330 and 435 kilometers way up there. And from there, the Great Wall can't be seen, but believe it or not, many other man-made structures can. They include Great Elmira Greenhouse in Spain and the Great Bingham Canyon Mine near Salt Lake City. Humans evolved from chimpanzees. It's often claimed that human beings evolved directly from chimpanzees, but it's technically incorrect. They may be our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, but chimpanzees didn't evolve into us. If you trace our collective family tree back far enough, you will find that we share a common ancestor with the chimpanzee. It was an ape-like creature that came way before both species. At some point, millions of years ago, these species evolved into two separate animals. One went on to become us, and the other split off to become other apes that we see in the world today, including the chimpanzee. So we're kind of like evolutionary siblings. In other words, we've evolved alongside each other. We have 5 senses. It is often stated that human beings only have 5 senses like taste, smell, touch, vision and hearing, but as you guessed, this is wrong. In reality, we have way more than 5 senses. In fact, we may have as many as 12. These include all kinds of things like a sense of temperature, the sense of time passing, sense of balance, sense of thirst, and many more. The myth of 5 senses can be traced all the way back to ancient Greece. In fact, the philosopher Aristotle claimed that we have 5 senses 2,300 years ago. In more recent times, this myth has been further spread by people referring to alleged psychic powers as the 6th sense. Bats can't see. It is widely believed wisdom that bats can't see. They fly around in the dark, live in caves, and suck people's blood. Oh wait, no, that's vampires. But still, many believe that bats can't see a thing. But the truth is, most bats can see just fine. In fact, many of the 1,300 species of bats have great eyesight and can use it for hunting. The common misconception that bats can't see is because people know that many bat species use echolocation when flying. This means that they produce sounds and then, depending on how those sounds echo off nearby objects, they can navigate around them. It's like nature's very own radar, but despite this amazing talent, species like the brown long-eared bat combine their radar skills as well as their eyesight to hunt down flying insects. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. Goldfish forget things after just a few seconds, or at least that's what people think, but it's not actually true. In fact, goldfish have pretty good memories. They can remember things for at least several weeks and can even be trained to remember events months after the fact. In 2008, researchers did a little experiment to see just how good a goldfish's memory is. They would play a specific sound every time they fed a group of goldfish, kind of like a dinner bell. Eventually, the fish were released into a fish farm, and 5 months later, the researchers played the sound again, and the same fish followed it, remembering that it meant that they were going to be fed. This research proves 2 things. 1, that goldfish have complex memories, and 2, that you should never tell your secrets around a goldfish, cause it's gonna tell somebody. The forbidden fruit was an apple. In the Bible, the famous story of Adam and Eve states that they were the first people who ever lived. Their home, of course, was the Garden of Eden, and at its center was the Tree of Knowledge, and in the pond around the tree was the Knowledge Whale. The story goes that Adam and Eve ate the fruit from the tree, which gave them knowledge of good and evil. Now, whenever someone tells this story or draws a picture of it, the fruit is usually an apple. But the truth is, there is no mention of what the fruit actually is in the Bible itself. Most researchers believe that the error comes from different translations. The Latin word for evil and apple are actually very similar, hence the confusion. Water makes your fingers wrinkle. Most people swear that water makes their fingertips prune up. After all, this commonly happens after taking a shower or a bath. It's commonly believed that the water soaks into the skin, causing it to wrinkle, and when the skin dries, it becomes smooth again. But the truth is, skin is actually waterproof. It's not the water getting into the skin that causes it to wrinkle. Instead, when a person is immersed in water, it's the brain that reacts to it. It increases heart rate and perspiration, which then causes blood vessels in the fingertips to contract, and then presto, you have wrinkled little pruny fingers. It is believed that this happens to give us a better grip in wet conditions. Never wake a sleepwalker. It is a very common belief that you should never wake someone when they're sleepwalking, because they could die of fright or they might end up losing it on you. The idea is that during sleepwalking, a person is in such a deep sleep that waking them suddenly can send them into shock and their heart could stop. But the truth is, there is no evidence for this. It is actually more dangerous when you're doing the walking. The worst that could really happen is that a sleepwalker is just gonna be confused when they wake up. In some rare cases, they are so dazed that they could panic and lash out. Sleep researchers say that if you find someone sleepwalking, gently guide them back to their bed, but if they look like they're going to hurt themselves by stumbling around at night, then it's time to wake them. Slaves build the pyramids. And this idea is still spread around to this day, but in truth, the people who worked on the pyramids were not slaves at all. They were actually free individuals, everything from craftsmen to professional builders, and were highly regarded for doing an important job, constructing the tombs of the pharaohs. A lot of people assume slaves were involved in the building of the pyramids because it was such a monumental task. It made sense that in the time where slavery was common, the cheapest labor had to be used. We now know that the builders of the pyramids weren't slaves at all, and in fact that they were so well regarded that they were buried in their own tombs near the pyramids of the pharaohs themselves. The Earth revolves around the Sun. Most people believe that Earth revolves around the Sun, but as crazy as this sounds, this is technically wrong. What the Earth actually does is revolve around the center of our solar system's mass. That means that everything that's in our solar system, like the planets, moons, comets, asteroids, and the Sun itself, has its own center of gravity, and that's what we orbit around. Now, the reason that people believe that we orbit around the Sun is because it looks like that. This is because the Sun accounts for 99.9% of our solar system's mass. That means that the center of our solar system is usually very close to the Sun itself, but it can be as much as a few 100,000 kilometers away from it. It's kind of like a cosmic optical illusion. So that was 10 completely false facts that everyone believes in. But if you guys enjoyed this, remember to give it a big thumbs up. Also be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications by clicking the little bell beside the subscribe button so that you never miss a thing. Thank you guys for watching, bye bye.